Welcome back, conscious creators, to week 3 of the Christos Chronicles. I am Christos, and today we are going to be discussing the Great Reset 2026. Now, it is December 31st, 2025, and we are at the cusp of 2026. Now, I know a lot of spiritual people out there don't acknowledge the new year until March or the spring equinox, and that's completely fine. I still believe that you can get some valuable information from today's segment, and I really just want to share my perspective on what I feel as though 2026 brings from a personal level and from a collective level. Now, 2026 is a year one. And with that being said, a year one is the start of something new. It's the start of a new 9-year cycle. And that's really what I want to highlight is what's really been happening from a pattern recognition standpoint over the past decades. And I really want to start with 1996 because 1996 was influential for me. I was only a kid at this time, but it played a huge role in who I am today. And that's why I want to go back in the time machine a little bit today. So in 1996, there was the release of a software program that I'm pretty sure many of you are familiar with. That program was Windows 96. Now, Windows 96 gave birth to the internet age as we know it. It really allowed the average individual to surf the World Wide Web with ease. Before then, you really couldn't get on the internet and just buy things. You couldn't just jump on Amazon and just buy things. So this was really important. And it was so important to the point that we had to even learn it in kindergarten. I remember being in kindergarten having to learn how to type in .coms and how to use a mouse in the middle of my keyboard. That's how old I am, guys. So with that being said, 1996 was really pivotal for human evolution. And we see the effects of that in our reality on every level. So I don't think that we should really just look at this as, something that we should undermine. These 10-year cycles are really influential for humanity on many levels. So fast forward to 2006, we get the birth of Facebook. Now, this is important because this is the birth of the social media era. Facebook to me is like the granddad of all social media platforms. And it's because Facebook originally started out for college kids, but it was one of the first to expand globally. MySpace, yeah, but MySpace really wasn't global like Facebook. Facebook, everyone has a Facebook. Your grandma has a Facebook. People in Africa have Facebook. Facebook is a global social media platform. So I feel like Facebook was definitely the birth of the social media era. Fast forward another 10 years to 2016, we get the birth of the streaming era. Now, streaming was already around a little bit before 2016, but I don't think that we saw the effects of it until 2016. This is when Apple came about. I mean, not Apple. This is when iTunes came about. This is when Spotify came about. This is when all of these streaming services, Tidal, all of these things came about around the 2016 era because streaming was so popular. This was Netflix. This was every company that you could now think of has a streaming service. So 2016 was the birth of the streaming era. Now 2026 to me is the marker of the AI era. Although AI really has been around the past 4 or 5 years, even sooner than that, to me 2026 is the mark of the AI era and really what AI is going to do moving forward for the next 10 years. So I feel like that's really what 2026 is, an invitation of more technological innovation. And mainly, we are going to see that through the help of AI. So if you hate AI, I highly recommend you start getting more acquainted because everything that you're pretty much interfaced with is going to have a degree of artificial intelligence. It's just the way of the world. And I was breaking this down to someone not too long ago. I said, even when you go into the average restaurant, everything has an interface or a personal self-service area, and I kind of found myself getting agitated over the week. And I was kind of asking myself, like, wow, am I pro AI? Am I kind of pro the new innovations? Because I don't like really waiting in lines for humans anymore. I think that everybody should just be able to have access to some form of self-checkout. So I don't know if that's selfish of me, but I think that we're going to definitely see a lot more innovations, even in just our everyday commerce, because a lot of people who run these multi-million-dollar corporations, they are invested in tech. So be ready for a lot of technological innovation. I also think we're going to see innovation in a lot more other departments, but we'll save that for another video. 2026 is also a dual year, and I mean that from an astrological perspective. Now, one planetary influence that I'm going to highlight today is Jupiter, although there are many other astrological changes and transits that will be taking place in 2026. One being Saturn. Saturn is going to be transiting from Pisces into Aries going into 2026. And another one is Jupiter. Jupiter will be transiting from Cancer into Leo. Right now, Jupiter is in Cancer, and what this means for us is we need to do the deep shadow work on a subconscious level. Jupiter in Cancer represents the womb. And when you really think about the womb is an isolation period. This is a time for you to have solitude. This is a time for you to do deep reflection. This is a time for you to rest. That's really what 2025 has allowed us to do. And that's what the energy is still going to be going into 2026 up until about June. So with 2026 still being in Cancer for Jupiter, we still need to be focusing on doing our shadow work, doing our healing, being in isolation, because that's really where a lot of the healing begins, is having time to ourselves. So that's what we're going to experience from a subconscious level. On the conscious level, when Jupiter enters the zodiac Leo, Leo rules over the consciousness. Leo rules over our awareness. Leo is also ruled by the sun. So this represents our conscious nature. So I feel like there's also going to be an extreme focus on our visibility. There's going to be focus on our creativity, our self-expression during this time of year also. But a lot of this is going to manifest more genuinely when we focus on our innate self, our innate nature, our environment, our habits, who we are at a core emotional level, because that's what's going to scream authenticity when we step out into the world during this season and time of year of Jupiter being in Leo. So I feel like that's really what we'll see in 2026 from an astrological level, is the oscillation of the subconscious and the conscious mind from 2026 until about 2027 of the summer. Now, how can you make the most of 2026? The way that you can make the most of 2026 is taking your subconscious nature a lot more serious. There's books that you can read about the subconscious mind. There's ways that you can tap into your subconscious mind, but change starts on the subconscious level, because the subconscious deals with our emotions. We are creatures of habit. We feed into our emotions more than anything else. So if we really want to experience change in our reality, change begins by influencing our subconscious behavior. So if you really want to experience change in 2026, start with your subconscious nature. Now, some books that I personally recommend picking up in 2026 is one, Napoleon Hill, Outwitting the Devil. Now, I've been recommending this book for the past 10 years, and the reason being is because I feel like everything in life starts with our habits. Everything starts with our mind, and understanding who our opposition is. Our opposition really is ourself, but we need to understand how our minds actually work, sometimes even against us, a lot of times against us. So this is a book that I personally recommend. you buying and just pulling out when you really need to be reminded of the battle that you face on a day-to-day basis. So that book is Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. The second book that I would recommend is The Power of the Subconscious Mind. Now, there's different variations of this book out there, but any book on the power of the subconscious mind, I think a lot of them are going to say pretty much the same thing, but I will leave a description to the one that I personally recommend down below. So that's today's segment, guys. The Great Reset 2026. I hope you guys bring in 2026 with love, with intention, and with purpose. Until the next time, wholeness.